Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make crazy melodies in FL Studio. And expressing your notes. The first thing we're going to do is write in a guitar. We're using Ample Sounds Ample Guitar SC, which stands for Stratocaster. And what we're going to do is go to the piano roll. Let's right click, go to the piano roll. So understanding guitar is important when writing melodies. So for example, most people play 4-note chords when it comes to guitar. Once you get into bigger chords and jazz chords, it starts to change the voicing of the guitar. Now, luckily, this plugin changes the voicing for you. So you may ask, why are chords important? It's because harmony is the foundation to melody. So if you skip harmony, you're not really going to understand melody. So let's start by building a simple chord, which is a minor chord. Let's start at E minor, which is just E, G, B. Okay, now most people might play it like this or up an octave. Now keep in mind this guitar changes the voicing per octave, depending on where you are. So what we'll do is revoice this chord to sound a little more, I'll say interesting. Okay, so what we can do is either raise the third. Okay, that's one way, or we can drop the fifth down an octave. Now for this octave, you trigger different key situations. So let's drop the fifth. Now before we start getting into all this complex music theory, let's first write out a simple chord progression. Okay, so your ear is really listening to the top note of these chords, and we're going to break these chords into a melody. So let's say your ear here is G at the top. And let's just skip every other note in this scale. We're just assuming that we're in the white note scale, which is C major or A natural minor. So we're skipping the notes, okay, going down the scale. You need to memorize scales. Right now, we're just basically copying these two notes and then picking a note at the bottom here. Okay, now my ear here is this. So this is going to be G. You don't need to memorize the chords right now. And then my ear here is A. So again, what we are really listening to, for the most part, are these top notes in the chords. So let's solo these and let's hear these. That's really what our ear is listening for. Okay, so let's hear it in context. Now again, the voicing changes per octave for this specific plugin. Okay, so let's get into deeper music theory and then we'll move into the melody making. So yes, harmony and chords are important. I know a lot of people tell you guys to skip this. If you don't understand intervals and harmonic stacking, you won't truly understand what works in melody and what doesn't. You'll just be kind of picking random stuff and hoping that it works. So here we have B to G. And remember, we're really listening to these top notes. So what happens if I pull G up an octave? You have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's 8 notes away. And then from G to B, you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a major third of an interval difference. You don't need to memorize this. I'm just showing you what's actually happening. Now from G to D, if you pull it up an octave, this is actually 7 semitones away. This is called the perfect fifth. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we'll always resolve. And then D to A is another perfect fifth. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're really only playing a major third interval and then 2 perfect fifths to end the chord progression. So when you guys struggle with chord progressions, just realize it's a lot more simple than you may think. Okay, now what we'll do is revoice these chords. So let's take the top note here, pull it down an octave. Let's raise this G up an octave so that this is all a linear experience. And then my ear wants to hear dun. Now my ear wants to hear F sharp at this point. So let's pull this down an octave. Now that I've revoiced these chords, my ear wants to hear F sharp. But let's pull down the A so that it's below G. Okay, so my ear wants to hear this raised up as a D minor instead of a major. So that's me overriding what we've done before, because now that we're listening to the top note here, it wants to resolve down a half step. Whereas before in the other voicing, it wanted to resolve in a different way. Okay, so at this point, what we're gonna do is you can add effects from this point. So I'll show you a simple tool. Once you map out the chords, grab your slice tool. Now you would think you need to add more notes on top, but in reality, what we're gonna do is actually slice these notes. Okay, so let's go back. and give it a rhythm. Okay, so we're just slicing top, middle, bottom. Pretty simple. You're just slicing, hitting shift, left click. Okay, so now you can go back and figure out where you want this sound to re-trigger. So right here, maybe instead of B, so to undo a slice, highlight the notes, hit Control G to regroup them. Let's grab that slice tool. I want it to trigger the top note instead. So it sounds very stiff right now, but I'll show you guys how to make it sound humanized in a second. So first, just get the rhythm right. Okay, so now we have that. Let's go to the tools and let's go to humanize. Okay, so a lot of people don't know this. If you update your FL Studio, you have a lot more access to scripts and different high advanced level things. In short, mess with your start time offset and your velocity. Hit accept. Now, the only thing you have to pay attention to is making sure notes don't overlap, because in FL Studio, if a note overlaps, it mutes. Let's hit shift right click and make sure no notes overlap. So right here, we have a couple notes. This is the only flaw to that script, is that it overlaps notes. Okay, so you have to manually go in and make sure stuff isn't overlapping. So it's a little tedious, but it's worth the additional humanized sound that it gives. Also, make sure that you right click and delete any stuff to the right of that last bar. Okay, let's hit Alt X and raise what's called the multiply to get different tones out of the guitar. Okay, so now we can go back to the actual guitar plug-in itself, and let's start messing with the amps and the cabinets. Okay, so the last thing you could do is change your key, hitting shift up or shift down. I recommend you guys slow your BPM down and also hit shift down to change your key. Now also, if you don't want all the notes to trigger, what you could do is just start off on the melody note or the melodic note and just figure out which note is not re-triggering. And make sure that it only hits once. Like right here, we don't need that second note. Now, when you take out the notes, it sounds super thin. Yeah, so that's just too thin for my sound. So we want to play those chords and just pick at the notes. Now, inside this plugin specifically, this is not, every single plugin. What you could do is actually change the key manually using the capo here, but that pulls it up as opposed to down. I don't know if you can go down. And you could also double up. So just try different keys. Your ear may like a certain key versus another. So another thing nobody really talks about for this plugin specifically, and then we'll kind of wrap this video up because this is plugin specific. Let's go to the top left, go to Browse Parameters. We're going to go down to what's called the mod wheel, and we are going to right click, create an automation clip, assuming you don't have a MIDI controller. We're going to grab this MIDI, drag it into the playlist. What we want to do is turn up the mod wheel value when we want vibrato. So let's go to song mode, and it will go. Okay, so what we're doing is doing that every, bar or so. At the end of the bars, adding that vibrato. That vibrato adds a soul to the sound. It's not, it's melody is more than just the notes. It's the expression and the articulation of the notes in the instrument. And now you can feel the chords come alive. Let me show you one more thing. In FL Studio, one more thing. If you go to Control and go to Channel Pitch, you can actually do pitch bends without a MIDI controller. So let's figure out a space where we would want a pitch bend. So let's say like right here, we want to go a half step up. Just right click and just drag this value to that first step or just below it and then come back down. It's a little tedious to do this by hand. I wish it was easier, but this is our current way of doing this. And let's pull this back down to 0. Make sure this is flattened out. I'm reading the values in the top left. Let me exaggerate this so you guys could actually hear it. So it goes wow. Now, if you left click, it's going to make it blocky. So that's why I'm right clicking. So that little pitch bend will add a little variety. It sounds, depending on the plugin, you're going to get different results. So with synth plugins, it works really good. For this plugin, it seems like it is pitch bending all the tone. And it goes wow. But it's those little touches that give your melody a little more life. So that was a good one right there. I think because we have the vibrato, it's not triggering so heavily on this one. It's my guess. So that's how you would do it. Now, melody comes in 4 layers for the most part. You have a rhythm layer, you have the harmony layer, you have the contrast layer or the lower frequency layer, then you have what's called the top line. What you guys can do is right click and just clone your instrument, for example. And we're going to act as if we're doing another take. Okay, so I'll show you quick ways. Let's figure out that first chord we used. I think it was E minor, but now we're in a different key. So we're in E minor. So E flat minor would be, let's right click, and that would be D sharp. Okay, so let's go to D sharp and let's use what's called the minor pentatonic. So if you're in the major key, you would use the major pentatonic. Right now we're in the minor key. We'll use the minor pentatonic. I wish they had the minor hexatonic because that sounds really good as well. But go to either the blues scale, the minor pentatonic, or the minor natural. And we're just going to improv off our typing keyboard to play over top in what's called the top line. Let's right click to raise our octave up. And we went too high. Let's go back down. Okay, so yeah, with this plugin, it has different key switches. So I hit a key switch and we need to pull it back down. All right, so that happens sometimes. What we'll do is just open up the new plugin. And if this is still giving me issues, I'll show you guys how to do it even without this plugin. So our goal is just to add that top line. So let's record. And it doesn't really matter what notes you play. You could use your typing keyboard. Let me do that again. Okay, so that's the minor pentatonic. Now, hopefully, here we record it. I did that with my typing keyboard. It sounds like a real guitarist did it. Now you just go to your actual sound and start messing with the preset. So that's how you get the realism out of your melody. A lot of people are teaching you what notes to play, what scale to play. That's not really the key to melody. Melody is about the expression of the notes. It sounds like I'm beating a dead horse or whatever, but you know, I can play guitar, a mute, you know, I could play sustain, I could play vibrato, I could play like super hard on it, it goes like dang. I could play hammer-ons, dang. I could, you know, there's a lot of ways you can play the one note. And I think a lot of people think that notes are the solution for writing better melodies, not necessarily. So let's crank this. So at this point, you just add your favorite effects. And again, don't forget you have that tool script, the humanized script, so you could always add that if you feel like your melody just needs that extra touch. Now, I did this because when you record with your typing keyboard, it doesn't record velocity. So I'm doing this because it now adds that human velocity, or how hard you hit a key, how fast technically you hit the key. So what are these layers? Here you have both a rhythm and you have the harmony layer. This is both things in one. Once you start complicating and over adding different layers to the melody, that's when your melodies fall apart most of the time. Here we have the top line. Okay, so all we have left is just the contrast melody. Okay, so this could be a bass line. It could be, let me see where our bass is. I think this is the one here. So now we're gonna add a lower layer called the contrast melody. Now contrast just is bouncing off this top line. It's trying to have a call and response type feel. And again, you could do the same exact thing, minor pentatonic. We're just gonna go down one octave here. Let's record. And again, I'm just playing random notes. But because we're in the minor pentatonic, you can't really play a wrong note. So if your top line is playing something fast, play the contrast layer slow. It's just about opposites. In this case, we're using frequency as an opposite. So you have the top line playing the higher frequency, you have the contrast layer playing a lower frequency, and it's a little bit slower, but it's still similar in the fact that it's playing longer notes, similar to the top line. So the only contrast in this case is the octave frequency. So what you could do to kind of spice it up is either give it more rhythm or simply play faster. So let me clone this so I don't mess that one up. Now let's just play faster. I'm just gonna play random notes because I'm improvising here. Whoops, we're in song mode. My bad, let's do it again. Now, the reason that guitar sounds off is because we left off on a pitch value and it didn't reset back to 0. So there's so many little things about FL Studio. Whenever you leave off on a higher pitch, it will start wherever the pitch value left. So that's why it sounded out of key until we hit that pitch modulation. Then it sounds normal. So I'll leave it alone. Hopefully you guys get the concept. And add overlapping notes, which are overlapping pitch values. Now again, you're gonna spend more time with the guitar tone than the actual sound. I'm just giving you guys a quick kind of jump course to get you started. Let's apply these same principles, but for synth sound. So here we have a JD800 from Roland. And what we'll do is start building out those 4 layers. We have the harmony layer, and then we'll have the contrast layer. We'll switch the sounds out. Okay, so contrast, then we'll have a top line layer, and then we will have our rhythm layer. Now, most of the time, rhythm and harmony kind of play the same thing. So you don't want to overlap rhythm if you don't need it. So harmony, let's start with the harmony. In short, we're going to use pretty big chords for this so that it feels like a big canvas of music. Let's start with our minor ninths. And let's use a little syncopation. Remember, our ears listening to this top note. Now I want that top note to be C sharp. Okay, now my ear wants to hear E. Dun, dun. And then to B. Now E to B is a perfect fifth. Okay, so let's map out the music theory in E's for a second. So F sharp to C sharp, that will be, if you count it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's called a perfect fifth. Always works. C sharp to E is 0, 1, 2, 3. That's your minor third. And then E to B is that perfect fifth again. So really a lot of chord movements is this perfect fifths with a third in there somewhere. Now we need that last chord to come in earlier. And now we have the house vibe. Okay, so that's the harmony. Now the harmony is not playing a rhythm. Very important. Okay, so now we need the contrast layer or the bass layer. So let's switch out the actual sound. Let's see if I can go lower. Let me see here. Okay, so let's record. So now we're going to do rhythm and bass, or contrast, I should say. So one of those notes is incorrect. Let's fix that. So now we have rhythm and contrast. Now the contrast usually contrasts against the top line melody. So you just want something to be different. If one thing's slow, the other thing's fast. If one thing's high frequency, the other one's lower frequency. If one thing's, playing in threes, the other one will play in fours. You just want to switch it up. Okay, so the top line, this is where you can get a little more expressive in the higher octaves. Because I don't have a MIDI controller, we're going to have to do what we can do. We started off on E minor, so let's go to what's called the minor pentatonic. If you right-click your typing keyboard, go to minor pentatonic. Let's raise this octave up to like 5 or 6 to get those higher frequencies. And let's do a top line. Let's record. I forgot the starting note. Give me a second. Oh, you know what? I'm in the wrong key. That's why. So we started in E. Let's right-click. Make sure we're in E. Before you do this, you have to be in the right key, or else your scale will play the incorrect notes. Okay, so notice if my top line tries to be rhythmic, it's now conflicting against that contrast layer, which is also the rhythm layer. Okay, so you have to decide that fine line of overlapping so that it doesn't sound too cluttered. So writing in threes is usually the solution. It doesn't sound too rhythmic. Okay, so that's the simple solution, is just using that rule of 3, which we teach in our Music Theory Magic course at busyworksbeats.com/music theory magic. So we're writing in threes. That's tresillo, ta, 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 ta. This was a little low, but it's... And now you have a good melody. Now let's apply some pitch bending. Let's go to our channel pitch. So it's a down. Okay, so let's change this and let's see how high we can go with this. Now we have that pitch bend effect. So that's how you create good melodies. It comes down to those 4 layers. And expressing your notes. Thank you for watching. To learn more, go to busyworksbeats.com/premium for your free trial. Peace out, guys.